Hello and welcome back to the Live Rally Game Podcast. My name is Steven Stewart, and I'm excited this morning for more Surviving Reelfoot First Fire Deep Dive coverage. Joining us today, we have the fifth place player from the game, Gerrilyn. Gerrilyn, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you, Steven?
I am doing well, quite excited. How has your recovery since Reelfoot been? Because you were in the game for almost the entire 8 days.
Yeah, so it's been interesting. Let's see. I think that I'm just now starting to get my normal appetite back. 3 square meals a day. I was on kids' meals there for a while. But honestly, I think the hardest thing has been I almost feel not depressed, but I miss everyone so much. It was such a great experience that it's almost like a vacation hangover. Like getting back to work and trying to be excited about my normal life again has been kind of meh, lackluster.
I've always in my mind compared these to summer camps. Because
hmm
you go to the summer camp, you meet these awesome people, and these games are intense because you're with these people 24/7, you're with them a lot, and then suddenly it's over, it's done. You're like, oh gosh, I'm back to normal life. Is this what I want?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And so this was your first game ever. How did you discover Surviving Reelfoot?
Yeah, so it's actually that's a great question. I have a couple friends that had played LRGs before. One of my cousins played Survivor PA and does prod for them now. Um, and she had told me about that a couple years ago, and I was just kind of wrote it off because I was like, oh, fan-led games. There's no way that those are legit. And then my friend on vacation, I want to say early May, just sent me the post. It's like, hey, Survivor Reelfoot's looking for an alternate female player. And I said, you know what? Let me just throw my name in the hat. This was, I think, 3 weeks before the game actually started. It was a very impulsive decision. Um, Same day, had an interview with Amos, Parker, Trevor, and Pete. Actually, while I was waiting in a bar to go to dinner. And they loved me. I loved the idea of it. So I just was like, you know what, full send, we're gonna do it.
So you have 3 weeks to prep for the game. What did you do, and what is your idea of what the game would be like?
So I'm gonna be really honest, and I think I was pretty open about it during the game. I am someone who has struggled with anxiety from time to time in my life. So I told myself I absolutely cannot watch the former seasons or I would talk myself out of it. So I tried to come in with absolutely no expectations. And I tried to come in knowing that, anything could happen, and just to learn about myself, meet new people, just enjoy the experience and be as present as possible. I would say the only thing that I physically did to prepare was I upped my running. I've been trying to get back into running, and I think this helped motivate me to do that. And thank goodness I did. So I think it would have been a lot harder had I not. But mostly, I just had to kind of walk myself through, this is something that's gonna be really good for me, and this is something that I need to stick to my guns and do.
And so clearly you are a Survivor fan to do something like this.
Mhm.
When did you become a Survivor fan?
So I know that there's a ton of people that love Survivor, and they have watched from day one. I do love Survivor, but I was not an original fan. I actually stumbled upon it during COVID. I was working in healthcare and I was just so burnt out. I needed to find something that I could fully invest my time and energy into after work. And that's why I kind of find Survivor. My in-laws have always loved Survivor. I think my mother-in-law has probably watched every season at least 4 or 5 times, and she's like, "You should check it out." Yeah, they're deep into it. Um, and my sister is in love with the show, so I just started watching it and I fell in love with it. Um, and then I kind of a couple years ago, my friend and I went up to Put in Bay. They did a live casting day, did that. And then, I heard Reelfoot was the most authentic version of one of these games. So I was like, let me try it out. And I think it's reignited my I need to audition for Survivor again, kind of
And
back
so,
in it.
so what was your expectation of how you play, or how did you want to play coming into the game?
Yeah, so, how I wanted to play was kind of how I played. I mean, I am someone who likes to sit back and observe a lot, and I come from retail management, so my whole thing was I think I can get people to do things I want them to do and make them think it's their idea, which I think I was pretty successful with, but my whole thing was it's my first game. I kind of want to play up that I'm a rookie, right? And just, lay back, let people kind of take me along. It really helped at much to my chagrin that I did not win any individual immunities. I'm too competitive for my own good, so that was really hard for me to take. But ultimately, I think it did help when you're trying to play like kind of a low key game, play the middle a lot. It does help you not stand out as much. Um, but like, I don't know. I think I probably could have been more strategic than I showed. Um, but yeah, my whole thing coming into it was like, I'm here for the experience, so whatever happens, happens. But I think after I made it past that first immunity, I was like, you know what? No, we're gonna be a little bit more intentional here. So really trying to like politic more, scheme a little bit as best as I could. But I tried to keep it as low key as possible so that, I've seen the fatal people doing too much too early too many times for me to really just jump in there.
So the day arrives, the game's about to begin. You arrive in Tennessee. You're
Mhm.
sequestered for a bit. Who was in the same room with you when you're sequestered?
Yeah, so I was sequestered with Aliana and Chad, who both ended up on the Orange Tribe, and I went purple.
Okay. Would you have tried to work with them if you're on the same tribe?
Oh, absolutely. I think that there was a couple challenges where um, Aliana and I had to compete against each other, and we both kind of like looked at each other. Just remember, like we were sequestered together. When that time comes, if we both make it to the merge, um, I definitely would have worked with them for sure. I don't think it ended up working out that way per se once we
Mhm.
got there, but I was open to it.
And so I think I have an idea of the answer, but for this cast, was there anyone you recognized?
No.
Okay.
This being my rookie season, I did not recognize anyone. I'm very new to LRGs. Like I said, when I applied, it was really impulsive. So, like, before that, I had not watched any of the other shows. I'm
Gotcha.
kind of starting to watch them now, especially because I see how much of a benefit it is recognizing people and knowing them from previous seasons. Coming in blind to everything is something you definitely have to overcome. Sometimes it can work in your favor, but
Yeah.
it definitely felt like I started off, a foot behind everyone else.
So you land on the Kanane tribe, the Purple Tribe. And
Mhm.
so what was your initial impressions of the tribe and the people on it?
Um, I mean, when they put us in our tribe right before we started the challenge, like they gave us maybe 30 seconds for everyone to introduce themselves. I felt pretty good about our tribe. I mean, the boys all looked strong. We had a pretty even split with females and males this year, so we had 5 females, 4 males on our team. I feel like we looked pretty well rounded. Um, but almost they gave us no time to think about it before starting that first challenge. So I was just hoping that we would do well. And after that first challenge, I think it built a lot of credibility and like trust within us that we were able to come together and communicate. Because that was the biggest thing for me is I cannot land on a tribe that cannot communicate.
And so you have this massive first reward challenge, which you do end up winning. How was that as
Yes.
an introduction to Welcome to Reelfoot for you?
I mean, I can't lie. I was super nervous when they said the first challenge we're running is the longest one we've ever run. I was like, this is not a great way to start. But the fact that we were able to pull it out, win a pretty big reward right off the bat, one, boosts morale a lot. It's good to know that you don't have to go right into gameplay. Again, that might be my naivety showing. But it was, I think, really awesome, and it gave us the opportunity to really, let's get to know each other first, and we had this big win together. If we can do this, and this is the longest challenge they've run, there's nothing we can't do this
Mhm.
season.
And so you win the challenge, you go to your campsite. What did you want to accomplish those opening hours of the game, and what did you end up doing?
Right, so I think, I mean, being a manager, it's kind of hard to leave that manager hat behind sometimes, so my thing was like, "Okay, we gotta get a shelter figured out," which we did. It wasn't great, and I don't think we ever really got, like, a solid shelter together, excuse me. Um, and then more or less, like, trying to start the individual, like, getting to know each other. who do I feel good with? I mean, a lot of it at that point is intuition based. Like, who am I getting good vibes from? Who to me
Mhm.
am I getting weird looks from? So we started a lot of that. Some people probably did start immediately with the game talk, but I'm someone who like I have to get the general feel for the person before I know for a fact that I want to work with him. So I really used that first. Let's see, we started midday Saturday. We knew there wasn't going to be a tribal until Monday. So I was really trying to use most of Saturday to get a feel for people and see like who could I see myself working with.
So, were were there any important conversations that happened, or did anyone stand out to you? It's like, oh, I feel really good about this person early on.
Yeah, I think immediately I clicked with Isaiah. I couldn't really tell you why. It just almost seemed like the stars aligned and we just kind of like we were both old friends that knew each other from before, even though we had never met. And it almost seemed like so again, playing up the rookie thing is like I really tried to be like, I'm looking for someone to take me under their wing. I know in a lot of these games, from what I've been told, people like to get the rookies out early because they don't know what they're doing. But it's also an easy number to take with you, right? So I was really trying to play that up to people. So I would say the two that I really connected with right off the bat were Nina and Isaiah. Um, and unfortunately, I'm not really sure that they ever really wanted to work together, but that didn't necessarily bother me. Um, the only advice I had going into this from my friends who play these LRGs is don't only talk to your alliance members, try and talk to everyone, which is almost impossible not to do that, especially when you start off with 9 people. But um, I mean, I like to think I had really good connections with everyone. Obviously, everyone is playing their game individually, and some people have different viewpoints and different goals coming into it. So it makes it spicy for sure.
Um, so let's talk about twists and advantages.
Yes.
There are two opening kind of twists slash advantages that occur in the beginning of the game. And the first is everyone receives 1/3 of a hidden immunity idol. What was your thoughts about that? And what did you want to do with it?
Yeah, so that was a little wild. I mean, I thought pretty early on because everyone had 1/3 of an idol and there was 9 of us, that's 3 idols sitting in camps, the likelihood that they hit anything around camp was slim. I was really hoping that I would find, like, a solid group of people to work with, and I think utilize those beads the best way we could, and I just don't think that that ever came to fruition. Like, the Kanane tribe
Mhm.
worked very well together, we communicated really well together, but I think we let "Oh, tribe love, kumbaya, we're all in this together," go on a little bit too long, and I think it put us on the back foot with the utilization of beads. We never really got a core group together, and then when we kinda had started to figure one out, it almost cannibalized immediately, which is not great. I would have liked to see more with the beads from our tribe. I know that the orange tribe had some good idol plays, I heard, um, but we didn't do too much with it, and I think I mean, to be fair, it was pretty back and forth all season, but we won a good uh, all of the right challenges that we needed to, so I really don't feel like any of us were put into a spot where we really felt we needed to utilize them.
Yeah, I think both tribes won an even amount of challenges.
Mhm.
Like it was very back and forth, which was quite impressive. I think that made production quite happy as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, you also, when you arrive at camp the first time, you see a cryptex.
Mhm.
What did you think about that?
Um, so it was interesting. What my first thought was, "This is gonna create chaos," which it really didn't. I think it probably took people a couple hours to find letters for the cryptex, and I knew that coming into it, depending on what we find, like, I'm not the best at word puzzles, so I was like, "Maybe if I find something, I'll pull someone else into it." But, Isaiah was the first person that came to me, and he told me he found a couple letters, and then I conveniently, like, literally right after he told me that, found a 3rd letter, um, and so it's hard when it's a 6-letter word and 4 of the letters you find are vowels, that doesn't leave you a lot of options, and it also kind of scrambles you a little bit. Um, I think it became too common knowledge almost that, like, people hadn't solidified alliances per se yet, so everyone kind of knew cat's out of the bag, there's letters, and it just turned into Isaiah just solving it in front of everyone, which isn't necessarily a problem, but it's not necessarily how you wanna gain advantages either, in the survivor world, so for everyone else's sake, it's probably great that it was out there in front of everyone, and it turned out to be, I mean, a Candy Bandits reward and an extra flashlight, which is great, we needed it, but it's, I don't know, it was interesting, it very quickly turned into, well, everyone just look for letters and we'll see what comes out of this, and I guess in the sense that it got opened in front of everyone, I'm glad that it was a jar of candy and not, a clue to another idol or some other advantage.
Mhm. Were you still searching in the woods for possible other advantages and idols, even with the cryptex and the one-third idol thing?
I mean, yeah, from time to time. I wouldn't say I looked too hard, because our camp area, despite having the largest camp, wasn't huge by any means. Like, it doesn't matter how far you wander off in any direction, you can kind of still see everyone. So you had
Mhm.
to be very intentional with how you were looking, and you had to make it look like you weren't looking, which is difficult also when you're in Tennessee where there's rattlesnakes and you're poking around with a stick is a little obvious because 'cause you're not trying to get bit. Um, so it made it interesting for sure. I know a couple times the Orange Tribe had, like, sent messages across that, like, "Oh, this person found an idol here," and I know they were just trying to stir up drama, but it definitely had people up in arms for a little bit.
How would you rate your outdoor skills?
Now, pretty good. I had never been camping before this, so I had a lot of firsts out here on Reelfoot.
Mhm.
I mean, in compared to everyone else, probably not great. Can I do it? Yes. Am I a beast with the machete? Can I build things outdoors? I didn't really try. Um, but I wouldn't say bad. Like, I made a couple fires. I was tending to the fire a lot. I definitely put in a lot of work at camp trying to build shelter, trying to gather firewood, but I wasn't, like, finding things for us to eat or, I don't know, building anything structurally.
So how was that first night in the game?
Oh, it was rough. I mentally, I think a couple times just in the I'm not even sure I slept, but laying on our pallets because we got the better camp, and this is the first year that they did this, but they had, like, 4 pallets with plywood screwed into it as, like, a makeshift bed so that you weren't directly on the ground, and I'm not sure it was any better, but trying to squeeze 9 adults onto that was rough in its own, and then also, I don't know where we got this idea, but we're like, "Oh, we checked the weather today. It's supposed to be 65 overnight, we probably don't need a fire." And then I think about 3 AM, we decided that was a terrible idea, and 4 of us got up and started building fire. We all huddled around it, and I think some people went back to sleep early in the morning, but it was rough, and that first night is always gonna be the hardest, but mentally, I
Mhm.
think there was a couple times that I'm like, "Why am I doing this?" Like, it's so easy to be like, "I could just walk up to the lodge and check myself out," and then I just had to keep running through like, "No, you're here for yourself, your husband wants you here, your family's proud of you for being out here and challenging yourself." So it's amazing how quickly, like, even though that is a survival skill in your brain, like, you can take yourself out of this situation, right? You also have to say, "No, there's a reason I'm here," and you have to talk yourself back into it a lot, which I think is something I didn't consider when coming out here.
Mhm. What has your family's reaction been to your experience in the game?
That's a great question. So, as much as I want to say, like, I knew I could do this coming into it, I 100% did not necessarily feel that way. I was coming out here to challenge myself and see what personal growth I could get out of it. My family coming out here, I was very much, as long as I'm not voted out first, we're good. And I think even calling my parents after I was done, hearing that my mom was so shocked, like, "This is so unlike her, I can't believe she did this for 7 to 8 days," and I remember my sister telling me, like, Oh, no, my dad was like, "Have you even met your daughter? Like, you can tell her to run and she'll run until she drops." So, like, it was so funny seeing 2 different viewpoints from both of my parents.
Mhm.
My husband was really proud of me. I definitely didn't think I was gonna finish 5th place, especially because I know a lot of people who are doing a hell of a lot more than me out there, in terms of gameplay and strategy. So, I think it just goes to show that, like, if you come out here and you're yourself and, you try your hardest, that it can get you pretty far.
So over the course of the second day, you have
Mhm.
two more reward challenges. It's back and forth. Nada wins one, you win another. Um, at the did anything major happen to you that second day, or and how are you feeling in the game at that point, going to that first go before the first community challenge?
Yeah, so I definitely feel like Anata winning one was definitely, like, kind of a come down for us. We were riding the high of that first reward challenge, and I think that going into it, we're like, "We're gonna be the tribe to sweep it." That's never how that goes, especially when you go into it thinking that. So I think we were just really big on the trying to, let's manage our expectations here. Let's come down together as a group. One thing we instated pretty early on was we would do like a breathing exercise together as a group. And I think that really locked us in for our second reward challenge. Also, apparently, if you tell Kanane there's food on the line, we're going to win it every time. I think we won every single food reward. Um, we were hungry, and we knew that when our backs were against the wall, like, obviously, it's easy to say that you need to win every single one, but when we were really like, "Push comes to shove, guys, we need to win this today," we buckled down and we'd pull it out. So, I mean, in terms of anything major happening on my end, I don't think so. I felt pretty good with everyone at that point, and we as a tribe had kind of decided, like, let's not worry about immunity until we get there. So for us, it was, let's go out there and just put it all on the field, and we were trying to, like, okay, first day, but we're not making rice. Second day, thankfully, we won a food reward. We decided not to make rice again. We are very much in the let's wait until we really feel like we need it, and, it made things very interesting, but I think it also definitely motivated us more when the food was on the line because we knew we could push ourselves farther and maintain our supplies and kind of come together as best we could at that point.
So had you feel like you made any formal alliances, or were you hearing any names?
Um, I mean, the first couple days, the only names I really heard were Janai and Sam. I think that I have since been told that people were potentially throwing my name around because I was also a rookie. Janai was a rookie. I hate to say it, generally the older ladies are always targeted first, and we didn't really want that to happen. I know had Sam was ruffling some people's feathers early on just because she is a very loud, opinionated, outspoken person, and that is okay, but sometimes it doesn't gel well with everyone. Um, but I think we were kind of we had a couple people there, and I think that maybe was our downfall as well. Because like, I certainly hadn't locked in any alliances. I had talked to different people, and I had maybe locked in, like, one-on-ones with people, but we didn't really form a group for a few days. And by the time we had gotten there, again, it had almost immediately fallen apart, which was not ideal. Um, Hopefully, I've learned a lot to take with me next time I play one of these games, but we'll see.
So you have your first individual media challenge, which your tribe will win. This is the man
Mhm.
down challenge, which involves carrying a person on a stretcher and doing a bunch of other stuff on top of that. Where were you in this challenge?
So I was the blind person. I was in charge of gathering puzzle pieces and then putting the puzzle together with the caller, and that was the very end of the
Okay.
challenge.
So you had the hardest, you had the most important role.
Yes, it's thankfully one of my strengths is spatial awareness, and I feel like we did pretty well. One of the problems I brought up to my tribe pretty immediately upon getting together and starting this game is something that I struggle with is giving myself credit and acknowledging like when I do a good job. So like going back on it now, I can say that like partially one of the reasons we won that is because of me. I'm not going to take full credit because we were in the tribe stage, right? And it was a unified effort. but we were certainly behind coming into that section of the challenge, and I will say we did not do a great job clarifying rules beforehand. I thought that they're all gonna run past me, and then they're gonna yell for me, and I come join them, and then they all run past me, and I hear, "Why didn't you take her with you?" And then so 2 of them had to come back and grab me, so we were already behind. I didn't realize we had to put all the puzzle pieces on the table first, and then we could put it on the ground. So, in the middle of gathering half the pieces, I think they're like, "Oh, those have to go on the table." So I just started throwing them up there with not being able to see, which was fun. I got a pretty bad bruise on my leg, that's finally going away now a couple weeks later from running straight into the table full speed, but thankfully, like, Isaiah and I had strategized pretty well beforehand about, "Here's how I would prefer to lay it out," so that I, like, can create a mental map of where I left all these pieces, and then you just tell me how to rearrange them, and we'll put them in the puzzle board, and that worked very well for us. It was awesome too to take off my blindfold and see that the other tribe wasn't even half done, knowing we came into it probably 30 seconds to a minute behind them. That for me was like a huge personal win that day. And it was such obviously the first immunity is such a big one to win and such a morale booster that it was definitely definitely needed for sure.
So you win that first immunity challenge. You're not going to the tribal council the next morning. By end of day 2, could you like rank the players in your tribe from most important to least important to your game?
Yeah. So, geez, let me see. I'm also trying to think back on like day 2. Obviously, as you go along, you develop different
Yeah.
relationships with people. But day 2, I would say most important to my game would have been Isaiah, Trav, Nina, Brandon. I'll put Rob closer to the bottom because we didn't even talk till day 3, which was a huge miss. I don't know how that happened. And then Janai oh no, we're forgetting Lachey. Lachey's above Rob. Then Rob, Janai, and then Sam. Is that everyone? Was that 9 people?
I think so. I wasn't like ticking them off, but it sounds about like
Hold
everyone.
on. Isaiah, Trav, Nina, Brandon, Lachey, Rob, Janai. Yeah, okay, that checks out.
Day 3, Jay West is voted out first in another tribe. And were you surprised by that?
Personally, I was not surprised. That was my prediction on who was going to go. They all thought Jay West was running things over there, and that man was chirping a lot during challenges. He was always taunting. He was always focused on us. So I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if they voted out Jay West because I don't know how much his head's in the game if he's always focused on talking smack to the other team, you know? Big personalities have a tendency of going out first. I mean, if you stand out a little too much, even if it's in a good way, like being competitive is great, but sometimes if you're too competitive, that can also get you sent home pretty early.
You have your second immunity challenge. This is Hot Pursuits. This challenge does not go well for your tribe at all.
No.
And,
yeah. I think we came into it a little too confident. That was always our problem from one challenge to the next is I think partially we came in too confident. I think in the beginning it was a big fight for voices. We never had a clear leader, and I think that was a downfall in our tribe. We had a lot of leaders, but there was a lot of times that we would look around and there'd be a few of us who felt like we weren't being heard and be like, okay, well, we're just going to take a step back. Someone here has to take charge. And I think that definitely impacted a lot of the times we had losses, or sometimes people wouldn't speak up when they had a really good idea because they were being spoken over by other people. And we'd go with that strategy, and ultimately it was not a strategy that was going to work out. And so I think that because we had so many people who were, 1, leaders, and 2, maybe not willing to speak up even if we knew that it was the right thing because we were so worried about the tribe dynamic at that time, it just ultimately led to our downfall.
And so losing your first challenge, this is where one can say the game really begins, because now you can really openly strategize and plot with other players. How was the scramble after the challenge before tribal council?
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's never done this before, I felt like my head was in a blender. Uh, I always thought, right? Because so you play one of these games and you watch on TV, if you watch Survivor, and it's like, it can't be that hard. And then it's truly like you have no idea what's going on at the other camp. You're not seeing any of the behind the scenes. You don't realize that you actually have to have the same conversation with someone probably 5 to 10 times to figure out what they're actually saying is the truth. Or, you hear 5 different things from 5 different people and you thought they were all working together, but you hear 5 different plans. So it's really parsing out like, what are people telling me that's true? I haven't heard anyone bring up my name, but that doesn't mean it's not out there. It was a lot, and I think through the whole thing that I was pretty adamant on that first vote that I was gonna take a step back and say, "Use me however you guys wanna use me, whatever the tribe wants, that's the way I'm voting." Despite the fact that it wasn't necessarily the way I wanted to go with Janai going home, um, but that's the thing is right at that beginning vote, it was always, okay, in the back of our minds, we're thinking it's either gonna be Janai or Sam, or at least that's what I was thinking. And obviously, everyone has a different relationship with their people. So a lot of people were closer to Sam than I was, and a lot of people were, Janai unfortunately ended up being that easy vote for everyone because she wasn't really talking game early on. And sometimes you're worried about doing too much, and then sometimes you're worried about not doing enough. And there'd be times where I tried to pull Janai aside, and I think that she just didn't realize that people were trying to pull her aside to talk game, so she'd, "Oh, we'll talk later," and just go the other way, and then by the time you end up at tribal and no one's talked to you, then that makes you the easy vote for everyone.
And so was she not strategizing very much that at this point in time as well, or was she
Yeah, I mean, towards the end, I think she kind of got a general vibe that it might have been her, so she was throwing a name out, she was pushing Sam. Um, Personally, I would have preferred that Sam
Mhm.
had gone at that time, just because I could tell a lot of other people were a lot closer to Sam. So for me, I would have preferred to slide into that spot. Um, but ultimately, again, I'm not going to be on the wrong side of the vote for the first vote. So she started talking game kind of towards the end after that first tribal, or not first tribal, that first immunity challenge.
Mhm.
But that was really the first time I'd seen her really chat with anyone, specifically about game.
So in retrospect, would Sam have been your ideal first boot?
I think so.
Of everyone in the
I
tribe, let's say you can have anyone be voted out first. Sam would have been the one who would have been best for you to be voted out first.
For me, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I could tell straight from the beginning, like nothing against Sam, but I just felt like long term we would end up clashing.
Mhm.
And we had a couple hiccups here and there. I thought we had brought it back together. It's interesting after you get voted out and going back and watching all these confessionals, seeing like, okay, maybe we didn't bring it back together as much as I thought we had. Um, But for my game, yeah, it would have been better for Sam to be gone earlier because a lot of the people I ended up working with, they were diehards for Sam. She's gonna be really loyal. She's gonna be loyal come the merge. And I was like, I'm just not getting that same vibe. So it's kind of vindicated after I got voted out and go back to the house and hearing she was, oh no, yeah, I definitely would have flipped immediately come merge. And I was like, I knew I felt something. My intuition strikes again.
How much of a concern was there that she would use that Jedi would get access to 3 beats for Nidal? Was that a concern at all?
I mean, I think a lot of other people were concerned about it. From what I was seeing, I didn't think anyone was super close to Janai that they'd be willing to give up their bead. I
Mhm.
mean, it had floated ar she certainly hadn't asked me, and maybe that is again, I can't be there for every conversation. I can only kind of see who's talking to who, and the vibe I got from everyone was, yeah, she was trying to get to know me personally, but there's no game talk going on, so I wasn't concerned about her pulling out a bead. Some other people were, but I was like, "I'm not gonna let, paranoia get involved right now." It's the first tribal. If people are stringing together beads already, then shit's gonna hit the fan anyways, so to speak, so not much I can do about it at this point.
So Janai's voted out 8-1. You win the next mini challenge, and Deborah goes home, and then you have Sumo at sea.
Yeah.
Who do you go up against in Sumo at sea?
Yeah, I got the unlucky end of the stick on that one. I went up against Aliana first and then Jess for the second go around. I think I probably would have stood my best bet probably against Allison. But I let Sam take her because she is terrified of that challenge. And I was like, if you feel like this is your best bet at winning one, go ahead and take it. I know that when we were deciding, Lachey definitely was like, Gerrilyn, no, you should go up there and do it. Like, you will beat Allison for sure. And I was like, Sam is terrified. Like, at the end of the day, if someone is facing a real fear right now, then like, you should have first pick here.
Mm.
I felt confident in that I'd put up a good fight against the other two. Uh, it didn't necessarily go that way, but I thought I stood a little bit better of a chance. So I let Sam take Allison. And then I got thrown into the water like a little kid twice.
So your tribe ends up losing, and I'm really
Uh-huh.
curious to I'm really curious to hear about how the scramble before this next tribal council goes, because ultimately tribes can go home, but this was, I can't imagine that was the name from the get-go. So walk me through what happens here.
No, that definitely was not the name at the time. At the time, I was still really close with Trav. Um, and I think that is ultimately that morning was when we had, I thought, solidified a five. It was supposed to be me, Trav, Nina, Rob, and Isaiah. And we had solidified that five. I had talked to Nina about it. I talked to Trav about it. I talked to Rob about it. I walked up in the woods to Isaiah and Trav having a conversation that was a little bit heated, and I tried my best to mediate that. And I think we came back together. Um, but after we lost Sumo at Sea, it was like the gloves were off and everyone was throwing everyone's name out there, and it was honestly wild. I think that I had heard probably everyone's name, except my own at that point. And again, that's because no one's gonna tell you that you're on the chopping block. So, I mean, again, I was kind of saying, like, what the tribe wants to do, if we're gonna make a unified decision, we can do that. Um, I know that people had thrown Sam out there again. Rob and Lachey were super close with Sam. They didn't wanna do that. Um Who else was getting thrown out? Brandon at that point had come to me and said, like, "I feel good with you. I potentially want to work with you." So I was trying to see what that door would open up.
Mhm.
Sam was throwing Nina's name out there for some reason. Trav started throwing Isaiah's name out there. I think the thing that sketched me out was that Trav had come to me to ask for my bead. And at that point, I hadn't heard Trav's name. It also kind of At that point, we had figured out that Trav and Lachey had previously played a game together, and I
Mhm.
know that Lachey had said, like, "You might need to watch out for him, he's a player." And so that kind of came to a head where Lachey and Trav were kind of on opposite sides of that battle, and I'm like, "This is great for me. If other people have drama, that's gonna result in one of them going home, and that's not Geraldine going home." Um, and I think ultimately what it came down to is myself, Isaiah, Lachey, Brandon, and Sam all came together, us 5, which was never the plan. Lachey and I had a talk, and Trav was scrambling around so paranoid, asking people for beads, throwing Isaiah's name out there after we just had a conversation and solidified a 5, that I was like, I don't necessarily, want to vote Sam right now. Some of these boys are sketching me out. And she was like, who are you thinking? And I was like, there's only one guy running around here,
Mhm.
really paranoid right now. So, like, ultimately, at this point, Lachey looked at me and she's like, Geraldine, like, I know this is the first game you've played, but this would be a huge move for you. And so, uh, in my gut, like, I felt like, yes, this is the move we should make. We should throw Trav under the bus, so to speak. It didn't feel great emotionally. I was so nervous. But the 5 of us came together, ultimately blindsided Trav on that vote. And I felt like it opened things up because, again, I was really close to Nina at that time. It seemed like her, Rob, and Trav were like a triangle. Like, those were the main 3 scheming together. And I wanted to open that up so that I could slide in there, and get in closer to Nina. It's I think went off seamlessly. in my opinion. I definitely didn't see it coming. Yeah, so it was crazy, but I think that for me was the most anxiety driven tribal. After that, I was like, "You know what? This is a game. We're all here to play the game. Yes, it sucks you form emotional connections with people. All I can hope is at the end of this, they don't hold that against me personally, because we all signed up for this game."
So, did you know that Lachey was going to get votes that round?
I did not. Well, kind of. So I will say, like, Trav was very open about voting Lachey. Rob was really pushing Lachey, but I didn't necessarily think that that's what they had settled on, because every time I talked to Trav, it was something different. Like, okay, Lachey and I are good. Okay, now Lachey and I are not good. I want to work with you and Lachey as like a final three. Okay, we got to get out Lachey this round. And I was like, well, which is it? Like, it cannot be going back and forth this many times in half an hour. So I think Rob was pushing Lachey because the other vote was Sam, and he was really close with Sam. Um, So, like, d yes, I guess I did expect it. I don't think that I was 100% sure that that was the direction they were going, though. You never truly
So,
know.
why do you think this alliance with you, Isaiah, Trav, Nina, and Rob didn't get off the ground?
Um, in hindsight, after talking to people, apparently Trav didn't think we were ever solidified, like, fully locked in, even though all 5 of us were in a circle saying that we felt good about it. I don't know how much more solidified you can be in that. Um, I also just think that, like, Isaiah and I noticed fairly quickly that we would be the bottom 2 in that, um, which I think would have been fine, but the first tribal after we solidify that alliance, we're already throwing each other's names out there. It's not a good start, and we didn't even get 1 vote together, the 5 of us, so I don't know how genuine it was. I think that Isaiah and I were pulled in to just be numbers to do what they wanted us to do, and in my opinion, that's not an alliance. Like, we all have our own games here, and I would like to work with you, but working with you means being a part of the discussion, not just writing down who you tell me to write down.
So, no regrets. This was the best time to blindside Trav.
I think so. I mean, it's so hard to do the what ifs because truly, had he stuck around, I have no idea what would have happened. Um, but I don't think that I was high up on his rankings. I know that we gelled together, pretty well personally. Like, I think I'll be friends with Trav for a very long time, but he is a big player, and I think at some point for him, I would have definitely been expendable. I think I was at least number 4 on his ranking. I would have liked to be higher than that. So for where we needed to go, I think it was definitely a necessary move. I don't regret it for sure.
So, after this tribal council, it's end of day 3. How are you feeling about the game?
I felt a lot better than I did walking into that tribal, that's for sure. Again, I was super anxious. It almost felt like once Trav went home, there was a weight lifted off my chest. So again, that's probably just the anxiety of like, God, I had to vote first that round. These people better vote with me, or I'm going to be left out to dry, and my game's going to blow up. But I definitely felt better going back to camp. I knew that I would need to, like, mend some things with Nina and Rob for sure, and I think that I mean, Rob was pissed. He would not talk to anyone for the rest of the night. He was definitely in his feels about it. The only person I think he talked to was Sam for the whole night. I had kind of spoken with Nina a little bit about it, and she was it's hard to say, right? Because she was immediately like, "Oh, you guys could have told me, I would have voted for Trav." And,
Mhm.
like, as much as I would have liked to believe that, it did seem like they were fairly close, but seeing how the rest of the game played out, I definitely think Nina was closer to Rob, so she may have done that. Um, it's a little wow, I can't speak. Hypocritical for me to say that considering I said the same thing when I got blindsided twice. Like, I would have voted for them had you just told me. So, uh, you never know. That's part of the game. Is like, can you implicitly trust these people who you know you can't trust, and how much of their word can you take at face value and how much of it is, lying by omission? There's a lot of things that you're not being told. And is that something you're going to take personally? So I was able to mend things pretty quickly with Nina. Rob is another story. I mean, he woke up the next day and made a whole speech at camp like, it's a new day. I want to move forward from this. I mean, but ultimately we all saw Rob got his revenge one by one. He took every single one of us out till the end, and I think he got every single one of our votes in the end too. So, like, I mean, I definitely should have worked harder. I think Rob and I would have been solid together if either of us had talked to each other more after that. But I think I felt a lot better going into day 4 after traveling home.
Day 4, you have an individual immunity challenge because both tribes were in the tribal council. Brandon wins from your tribe. Now, you mentioned before that Nina was someone that you felt close with, that you wanted to work with. You were hoping to kind of slip in the trab spot with the her and Rob alliance. What happens this round? Because Nina ends up going home.
Yeah, I was not happy about that. At this point, I don't know if I just wasn't seeing something, but everyone was super concerned about Nina. Everyone was very much worried that, she's going to make it to the end, she's going to win. And I'm like, y'all are thinking a lot of steps ahead from something we're very far away from, which I know Survivor, you have to play a short game and you have to play a long game consecutively. But there's only so much you can plan for long term because there's, potentially 3 immunities a day at this point. That's a lot of variations you have to consider. So I was pushing at this point. I was pushing pretty hard for Sam. Isaiah was pushing pretty hard for Sam. She was causing some unrest around camp. Again, that's part of having a big personality. And I think a lot of us at that point were feeling like we weren't getting a word in edgewise. Every challenge we went to, it was Sam's strategy. That's what we needed to do, and we weren't allowed to deviate from that. And if we tried to suggest something else, they would just get talked over. So, I mean, also at the end of the challenge, Sam was crying, which I get getting emotional. I was very frustrated as well. I didn't do as well as I thought I would. I DQ'd, Sam DQ'd, but crying to the Orange Tribe that I'm voted out for sure. I'm on the bottom. Every tribal my names come up. I'm like, okay, well, you don't need to be giving away all of this information. We can wait on that and maybe till we're back to camp. And again, it was just Rob was closer with Sam, which I find interesting because later on he's obviously much closer to Nina. Lachey was closer with Sam. All I was being told is if we do Nina this time, we'll get Sam on the next one. And I was like, I really don't want to do this. I mean, I told Nina what was going on. I was open with her about it. And ultimately she told me to vote for her because she didn't want me to blow up my game. And I did not want to do that. Nina left me her bead in my bag before we went to tribal. And ultimately I had to write her name down, which I did not want to do, but that's kind of what was going on. Brandon was telling me he didn't think he could trust Nina, which is wild to me because I think the day before he told me he felt really good with me and that he felt really good with Nina. He'd potentially see that being a 3. And then I talked to Nina about it. Apparently he never said that to her. So I don't know if there was just miscommunication going on or if I don't really know what it was, but ultimately I was told to vote for Nina by Nina. I would have been on the wrong side of the vote. I was like, I'll throw a vote on Sam. I don't care. I didn't want to write her name down, but she didn't want me to do that. So ultimately I ended up going with what the tribe wanted.
So at this point in the game, there are 12 players left. You know that redemption is in play. But before we talk about redemption or outcasts, let's talk about swaps. Were you thinking and expecting swaps at a certain point in time? Were you just like every round at this point, like, all right, we're going to swap? Or at some point, you're just like, I guess maybe we're not? What's going through your mind?
So everyone else was really worried about swaps. Again, I came in knowing that like the Survivor taglines always expect the unexpected. So I was truly trying to not expect anything because all of my predictions had been wrong. I was like, I'm not going to guess it. It is what it is. They seemed very worried about a swap, but then we're also running the numbers from people who've watched seasons before. And a lot of times they'd merge around 12, around 10. And I'm like, does it make sense to swap for 2 tribals and then go back to a merge? You never know. So they were planning for a swap pretty heavily, which is another reason why I didn't want Sam to stick around. I truly, in my gut, like, did not feel like she was gonna stay loyal to purple. And I knew at that point that, like, yes, we'd kind of mended fences, but I knew her and I probably at some point would end up targeting each other.
Mm.
Um, so there was a lot of people talking about a swap. My thought process is I'm gonna make sure that I'm good with the people I'm good with, and I'll believe it when I see it.
You have the Outcast Challenge, right?
Mhm.
You're competing against the 6 people voted out. If they beat you, one, if not 2 of those players will get the re-entry the game. Um, but thankfully, your tribe wins this challenge, and so does the Nada tribe.
Mhm.
It was a long challenge, though, from
Yeah,
what I heard.
yeah. We were definitely the comeback kids for that one. We were very far behind. We had I think at this one, Isaiah and I decided to speak up more on where we were placing people, and some of us had said we're stronger at throwing, and then in other challenges, we saw that maybe wasn't the case. So I was like, let's talk about who is very, uh, who is
Jay was mentioned that he really wanted you to lose in that challenge.
Oh, I'm sure they did. They wanted to come back in the game. They were fighting hard for it. And to be fair, optically, we definitely should have lost. We were super far behind. I think both of the other tribes were trying to make fire for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes before we even got there. Like we were struggling. We had gathered the most fire making supplies. Like Lachey and I did very well. She'd throw it to me. We knew Sam's not the best at catching. Like we'll put you, right next to the cage. So if I have to, I'll just throw it past you, right? And to Sam's credit, that woman's a little crazy. She was like, just hit me with it. Just throw it right at me. You can hit me. It's fine. And I was like, well, I don't want to hit you. Like, but when she was in it for the team, she was in it for the team. And I know a lot of people saw that. Where we struggled the most was Rob getting the flint. Somehow, when we tied bamboo sticks together, they just keep falling apart. And next thing I'd hear is the twine's really far away. We got to get the twine back. And then next thing I heard is the flint somehow is behind the post. But that man did not give up. We had to keep cheering for him. I mean, I think some people were starting to get really frustrated. And I was like, guys, that energy's not helping. Like,
Mhm.
first and foremost, if our tribe's been good at communication this whole time, we can't fall apart now, especially to go to tribal and have an outcast come back. Like, we can't do it. I will not allow it. So we really had to keep fighting. Um, and ultimately Rob pulled it out. That man did not give up. He didn't stop. Like they were like, take a water break. And I was like, keep going, please. Um, so I mean, all the credit on him at that point, because mentally it's got to be so hard not to just like check out and just, throw the towel in the bag. Like I think at some point in that challenge, all of us were like, I don't think we're winning this one. And then as soon as we got through that door, I mean, the other tribes have been building fire so long that like we didn't have to try that long before they started, okay, you can, everyone can help build the fire. You can go back and grab as many supplies as you need. Where I think the confusion came in with that is we look up in Trav's and our building materials and our supplies that we had gathered. And I was like, I think everyone can help, but I don't think you can steal other people's supplies. And then at some point we see other teams, building up, the base that they're so the fire's
Mhm.
closer. So we started doing that as well. And they eventually opened it up to you can take the stuff that they used to extras from building the challenge that wasn't even in play. And somehow Brandon got that thing lit and we were all just like, we just need to throw as much crap on top of it as possible so it burns high enough. And that one was a huge win for us.
So no outcast re-enters the game, but the merge isn't here either. You
Yeah.
win the next immunity challenge. Andrew's voted out, and then you lose a blindfold challenge.
Yeah. That was wild. That second immunity challenge also, I will just put on the record, was a huge comeback for us as well, because we definitely should have lost that one also. I mean, I think they're on their second table maze before we even got a ball up the Holy Smokes challenge. We pulled that one out pretty quick as well. Andrew went home, or Arm Drew, as I heard they were calling him over on Anada. Yeah, then we lost another blindfolded challenge, and I think that was more the puzzle got us. It was one of those cube puzzles that has like 7 pieces.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those puzzles that once something clicks for you, you can get it pretty quick. And unfortunately, it just clicked for them about 30 seconds before us. That one, like, I knew my strengths there. Isaiah was caller again. Sam had sat out for that one. I don't think she wanted to, but ultimately, like, we had made the decision knowing that Isaiah and I work well together, as caller and blindfolded, that like we thought that his communication in that challenge would be better. Sam is amazing at puzzles, so maybe had Sam been involved, things could have been different, but it's so hard to say. He sent me out for the 2 closest pieces and I brought them back. At that point, they all had to touch the mat. Our mat was all folded up. I just stopped listening. Like, he wasn't going to send me out anymore. I was fixing the mat blindfolded. I was moving all our pieces so they were touching when people came back. Somehow, not being able to see, I was just, like a second organizer there. So once we got it all together and back on the puzzle, I mean, I think it just, we were very back and forth all season. That one was clearly theirs to win. It was their time, and like I said, it just clicked for them about 30 seconds sooner than us.
So, talk to me about the scramble. Like, did you feel like you were in trouble with this tribal council, or just like, you promised me Sam, it needs to be Sam?
Oh, I definitely felt like I was in trouble, even though no one was saying it to me. I had figured at that point that Sam was probably going to push my name, and she did a pretty good job playing it off like that wasn't the goal, but she also was very hesitant to name names, which I thought was odd if she knew she was on the bottom. Like, if it's me, I'm throwing out another name for sure. So that kind of clued me in that maybe I'm the other name. But it was going around to every person, like, it's Sam, right? And the pushback I got on that, and I was like, listen, y'all promised. Like, I hate to be that person, but if you give me your word, you better cash that check, because otherwise I lose a lot of faith in you and trust in you. And so ultimately, like, Isaiah and I really had to fight for that. Rob didn't want it to be Sam. He was pitching Lachey. Lachey didn't want it to be Sam. She was potentially pitching Brandon. So it was rough. I mean, it was hard. I think the thing that really got me is we were walking to tribal, and Rob comes over to me and he goes, "Hey, do you care if I write your name down in like a last ditch effort for Sam to give me her bead?" And I was like, yeah, I'd prefer you didn't. Like, obviously, I would prefer you not write my name down, would be great. And I was like, well, are you going to talk to her about it? Or you just hope my name being written down, she'll like give you her bead on her way out? He's like, yeah, I'm probably not going to talk to her about it. And I was like, no, I would really appreciate you not doing that. But he did write my name down. I did get 2 votes that tribal. So at that point, I was like, okay, I have to take everything Rob's telling me with a grain of salt. Like, there's no, I don't know. He kept telling me he wanted to work with me. I mean, he really liked Sam. He didn't want to write her name down. I'm like, that's fine. But had you given me that reasoning beforehand, it would have made more sense to me than a last ditch effort to get a bead, especially after coming back and hearing that, like, no, Sam already offered all of us her bead before tribal. Like, either way, someone was going to get her bead. So
did you talk more with Rob about him voting for you after tribal council?
I mean, he gave me the, oh, I'm sorry, like, I didn't want to write your name down, but I didn't want to put Sam's name down. I thought she'd give me her bead. And he tried to say, like, she didn't. And I don't know if any of us really believed that until I talked to Nina after coming back from Outcast, and she said, no, Sam did not give Rob her bead. So then I was even more like, what the hell is the point of writing my name down? Like, your plan didn't work. I would have respected it more had you said, like, I really can't write her name down. I'm sorry. That's just where I'm coming from. But you can't change the past. I mean, I just knew, like, okay, Rob wrote my name down. I'll forgive you. I'm not going to forget. It will come back up.
If you went to tribal council one more time with this group of people, what would have happened?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. At that point, I was pretty close to everyone except for Rob, so I probably would have made a pitch for Rob knowing we were getting closer to merge. Like, I pitched Rob so many times after that. It's the guy's a beast. Yes, some people don't respect only challenge wins, but like the farther you let him go, the more likely he's gonna get to the end. And that to me seemed obvious. No one wanted to vote him out. In my eyes, I would have pitched Rob at that point. Um, but I don't know what other people would have done. I don't think
Mhm.
Rob was super close to for the rest of us at that point. I know that Isaiah maybe felt shaky with him. I know he'd pitched Lachey a couple times at that point, so I don't know if she felt it. I really just don't know how Brandon's relationship with him was. I think that's who he was probably closest to coming back pre-merge. Um, so that might have been tricky, but I honestly, if had we done one more tribal with that group, I'm fairly confident it would have been Rob because I was Isaiah's number one. I was Brandon's number one. I was Lachey's number two because she was really close to Isaiah as well. So I almost feel like that's how it would have had to go, but you can never be sure about anything in Survivor.
So with Sam going out,
Mhm.
there's going to be one final outcast challenge. Someone is re-entering the game. Who did you want to see, or who did you not want to see?
I think that question for me was particularly easy. Like, I wouldn't have minded seeing anyone potentially from Orange because I know that they were kind of burning bridges as they went. And I thought that person would have been easy for us to take in. But I was obviously hoping Nina came back. Nina was my number one this whole time. Um, she was the person I was closest with. I don't think a lot of people saw that because I think we did a pretty good job of hiding that. Obviously, if they all thought she was number ones with Rob, but Nina was who I was hoping for. After the first Outcast challenge, I was like, it cannot be Trav. Trav is pissed. Trav is definitely not on Team Kanane at this point. Like, he does not want to work with us. So, I mean, ultimately went the way I wanted, which was the only time that has potentially happened, 100%. But yeah, it was a doozy, that's for sure.
So Nina re-enters the game, and you are officially part of the merged tribe, the Agua Terra Fuego tribe. How does it feel making merge?
Honestly, it felt amazing. I never anticipated making it that far, as self-deprecating as that sounds. Um, I think every day in the game set a new goal for myself, and I was like, I think I can make it this far. I think I can make it this far. So making it to merge for me was a little bit surreal, especially because like the last 4 or 5 challenges at that point, they made us pack up everything in camp. So they were definitely playing up. There might be a swap. Something might happen. We got a tree mail that was like it made it seem like we had to, compete for merge, like how they do in the newer seasons, where you're split into 2 teams. Whatever tribe wins is for sure in. Whatever tribe isn't goes to tribal and then gets in. So a lot of mind games this season, but it was amazing that we didn't have to compete. We had a nice lunch together. It was almost surreal. It was a little vindicating too, talking to Jess and Aliana about sumo at sea, and they were saying that they were most worried about me, which obviously it didn't come to anything, but it made me feel better.
Yeah, so you're meeting everyone from the other tribe the first time. So you're meeting Juan, you're meeting
Mhm.
Jessica, you're meeting Allison, you're meeting Aliana. Who am I missing? And Chad for the first time. What'd you think about them?
Yeah. Um, I mean, everyone seemed very nice at lunch. We were all eating, we were all happy. There was champagne, that was awesome. I knew though at the feast, people weren't probably gonna get really into it. So it was just interesting to see on the walk back to camp who was chatting with who, how quickly we were going to get into it upon getting back to camp. But overall, first impressions were pretty good. We all went around the group, age, occupation, like where we're from, to try and get to know each other better. So that's cool.
Do you get Nina back for bead?
I did probably like 3 a.m. that night. I gave Nina her bead back. She never formally asked for it back, but I thought it would be a show of good faith, not knowing that she had everyone else's bead from Outcast. So it probably wasn't necessary at that point, and because she didn't ask for it, I probably should have been like, "I wonder why she doesn't want it." But, you live and you learn.
How was reconnecting with Nina?
Reconnecting with Nina was great. I think first and foremost, I could tell almost immediately that she had no bad blood with me, for sure. Um, I don't know if she felt like 100% back with Kanane. I think after talking to her, she definitely didn't. I know she felt burned by a few people, and she clearly put some moves into play and gathered a lot of information at Outcast, but her and I were still very good. Her and I were still number ones at that point. Um, Despite the fact maybe I didn't know everything that she was doing, it almost 100% of the time did benefit me. So I probably wasn't asking as many questions as I should have been, if I'm being honest.
How clear were the tribal lines or battle lines being drawn? Were you pretty much like, yeah, it's purple versus orange this first vote, or was there more kind of like movement between the two tribes?
That's a great question. I mean, I do think it ended up being purple versus orange at this point. I know we had talked about that being the case coming in, up 6-5 with the assumption that Nina would vote with us, which in my eyes was a big assumption. Not that she would vote with me per se, but like y'all know you did just vote her out and she had to fight to get back twice or not twice. Yes, twice. Anyways, yes, twice. Sorry. It's amazing how quickly things happen in such a short period of time. But
Yes, it's a blur.
they were just assuming that Nina would vote with us. And I was pretty confident that her and I would vote together regardless, but that didn't solidify that it was going to be purple versus orange for me. Numbers wise, that would make sense. However, I think that once you get to the merge, the game is fairly fluid. And I think that it was also pretty clear at that point that you had 3 women coming from orange and you had 3 women coming from purple. So very early on, there was a female alliance that was floated that did not necessarily feel genuine to me. And someone on Anata was really doing some heavy lifting with the psychological warfare. Like, I know they were just floating out ideas left and right to try and get us to scramble harder. And it was working. I mean, ultimately, we had to do what was best for us. And at that point, I didn't realize that Nina had kind of orchestrated Lachey going home. So, despite the fact that we had the numbers 6-5, I do think it was naive of them to assume Nina would vote with us. And I also, like, Brandon was getting pretty paranoid at that point. They had talked about pulling some beads together, and then if Brandon was for sure it was him, he would play it for himself, and if we heard anything else, he would play it for that person, but either way, Brandon was gonna hold it. As we're walking into that tribal, it's the first time that I hear anything about it being potentially Lachey or Isaiah. And Brandon ultimately made the decision to still play it for himself, despite, I think I was the last person to find that out. So he had potentially known that it would be Lachey, but he chose to play it on himself still because he thought they were just telling him that. So that tribal was certainly the messiest one we had to date. But I mean, that was a great gameplay. I think that Anata took a lot of credit for that, where I think ultimately credit was due to Nina there. She had really orchestrated that from behind the scenes.
Yeah, so you never gave Brandon your bead, correct? So Brandon is playing beads from Rob and Lachey to make that happen.
Correct. Yeah.
And so
I never gave Brandon my bead.
Brandon plays his idol, and what's kind of striking is this is the last, like, no idols are really played after this round because there's not enough beads on either side to make an idol outside of Nina hoarding a bunch of beads, not telling anyone about it.
Right. So at that point, like, Brandon never even asked me for my bead. At that point, I was firmly believing that I was his number one. Um, so which is probably why he didn't ask for mine, so that we knew one of us still had one.
Mhm.
I know Isaiah still had his bead at that point. Um, and then obviously Nina had a whole cache of beads we didn't know about. But yeah, at that point, I think people were assuming like the beads are not there to be played necessarily,
Mhm.
at least on our tribe.
So Brandon plays the idol for himself. Jessica, your target, plays an idol for herself as
Hmm.
well, leading Lachey to catch 3 votes. Aliana catches 2 votes. Isaiah casts one vote. Lachey going out. How did you feel about that?
I was shocked. I wasn't stoked about it. Ultimately, I also wasn't too concerned about it because at the time, like, yes, Lachey and I had voted together a couple times. To me, that was like a voting block that came together. A lot of other people apparently thought that that was an alliance, and I was like, I didn't sign up for that necessarily. I like Lachey a lot, but I think a lot of our trust with each other was built around our trust with Isaiah. So ultimately, like in my grand scheme of things, at some point, I probably would have had to cut her. So it was kind of like no blood on my hands for that one. It was unfortunate and it took away our advantage in the numbers. But at that time, we also thought that, you know, again with the psychological warfare, like I think we were way overthinking things. Like, well, we can't vote Aliana and we can't vote Allison because they're acting like they're going home, which means they probably think we're putting the votes on them. So that's who they're going to play an idol for. So we should play an idol for Jess. And I was like, that seems a little overcomplicated. Knowing now that Nina had told them to play the idol on Jess makes a lot more sense because I was like, there's no way they guessed that one right if we made it very clear that the other two people were bigger threats
Yeah,
to us. Um, yeah, that was a messy tribal. Great for TV. Uh,
that's all we care about. Um,
yeah.
so it's final 10. I mean, this is the start of a very long day 6, right? You're gonna have 4 more tribal
Yes.
councils. It's 5 original purple, 5 original orange. How did you see your path going forward moving? Were you thinking like, I want to stick with purple, get a majority, and then play the middle, or just ride out to purple to the end, or I think I'm going to defect soon?
I mean, I was always open for opportunities. I now was telling everyone that I was open for opportunities. But for that to be a thing or come to fruition, I also need like I'm someone who very much trusts my gut and my intuition. And I think if anything, being out there taught me to rely on it more. Um, I also feel like I can read people pretty well. So there was a lot of, oh, we want you to work with us. We want you to come to our side. But there wasn't a lot of sharing information or talking strategy per se. It was almost more of the, well, you'll vote with us and then at some point we'll cut you, right? So at that point, it felt like in my best interest to stick with purple or potentially see, like I told Nina multiple times, where you want to go, I trust you. We can vote as a unit. If the two of us want to be in the middle, then we hold the power,
Mhm.
even though it seems like we're on the bottom. So let's go with that. And ultimately, I think that's what we did for our next vote.
Yeah, so this next vote, it kind of comes between Aliana and Juan.
Mhm.
How does this come about? Where are you in the scramble?
So I think pretty much as soon as we merged, I could tell that Aliana was the one leading a lot of the strategy. She was doing a lot of the deception. That girl loves making people feel uncomfortable. She likes holding the strings. She's a puppeteer and she's good at it. She is really good at looking you in your face and making you believe everything she's telling you and then turning around and stabbing you in the back. And I caught on to that pretty early because as someone who is neurodivergent, like I know that my issue is gonna be, like, necessarily, can I tell people they're lying to me? And with her, I was almost 100% certain she was, but she was good at it. And I was like, "Yeah, we gotta get rid of that. I can't I
What
can't have
so
that so." Go ahead.
what were her tells, or how were you so sure that like she's just lying to me straight up?
Um, that's a really good question. It's I think just comparing notes, honestly, with people, who I could trust a little bit more, and then she I don't know if she really had any tells or if it was just a gut feeling. Like, though from what I felt from what I was getting for her, it was very genuine that, "Yes, right now I wanna work with you," but I
Mhm.
wasn't feeling that the same was to be said long term. Um, and I I don't know, there's just this little twinkle in her eye that was just telling me, like, "You gotta watch out for her." Like, was I believing what she was selling? Yes, but I was also like, "She is selling it too good. I don't know if this is 100% accurate." So, I mean, I was pushing for Aliana the whole time because I was like, "She's too good." She plays the game. She is strong as hell. She has all of the right people in her back pocket, and she's really good at making you think that her plan's the best
Mhm.
plan. So that's kind of the route I was going. For some reason, these boys on our tribe, I don't know what's wrong with them. Everyone this season wanted to go to Rocks, and I'm like, this is my first game. I'm not going to Rocks until we're at least Final Four. Like, the hell are you guys doing? Why would you go to Rocks when yes, there's 5 of us, but we were almost 100% certain we could flip Juan to vote with us because he had the previous tribal marked, he wrote down Allie's name, he marked his paper, we trusted that. Why the hell, when it's 6 on 4, would we go to Rocks? And so ultimately, these boys wanted to go to Rocks so bad. Nina and I were like, we're going with the girls. We're voting Juan
Wait,
out.
so,
We're
so
not
like
going Rocks.
so they were saying, "Hey, we'll vote Aliana," and they didn't think Juan would vote with you for Aliana a second time.
They were pretty confident that he would because he voted with us last time. Like, we didn't tell him a name to write down at the previous tribal. We just wrote, put someone on your tribe, put this symbol in the corner, and that's how we'll trust you moving forward. And then this time, he was all in for Aliana. Like, Juan had
Juan.
made it very clear the whole time that he was on the bottom. And I was buying that a lot more than I was buying every single other person on their team telling me they were on the bottom. Like, you could see at scramble time, no one wanted to talk to Juan, including people on his own team. Like, they always left Juan to stand there and look around. And, I was like, okay, we can bring him in. That's easy. I don't know why they thought for some reason that Juan might not vote with us. So they wanted to go to Rocks on that chance. And Nina and I just were not having that. We're like, okay. So, you know, who was it? Aliana came up to me and she was like, listen, like, I don't know why everyone's so dead set on going to Rocks 5 on 5. Like, it doesn't need to be that way. Do you think you could get Nina to vote Juan? And then you talk to Allison about it, and I'll talk to Jess. And I was like, I think so. Like, so I floated the idea to Nina. Aliana talked to Jess, and she's like, I want someone purple to talk to Allison about it because I don't want it to feel like, we're just dictating this. Like, all 5 of the girls can come together here and get one of the guys out. And then we still have the numbers. If we want to keep working together, we can. And I was like, that sounds like a fair plan to me. Um, I At that point, we had discussed potentially, we can revisit the girls thing. We can just go back and forth, purple, orange, get the boys out and then duke it out. For me, I was taking everything one vote at a time. So, did we tell the boys we were going to do that? No. Were they pissed off that we didn't go with their plan? Absolutely. But like, we went back to them and I was like, listen, like, you sat there and you were all for sure we were going to Rocks and you did not take anything neither I had to say into account. You didn't care. You were making that decision for the 5 of us. And you don't have that power. So that's how it went. After that, they definitely were very much more inclusive in the conversation. I think they realized that like they didn't have the power to make decisions for all of us, or maybe they thought that we were just in their back pocket and would do what they wanted, but that was never the case.
Do you know why Juan votes for Nina and not Aliana?
I don't. I wasn't sure. I think after talking about it, because I here how do I want to put this? I think that that's what he was told to do, potentially by the Orange Tribe, and that he thought he could still build a bridge back there.
Hmm.
I don't foresee how, considering he wrote one of their names down the last time and they knew that. But I think that was a last ditch effort with him. Like, he wasn't feeling great with us because the boys were being so vocal about going to Rocks, I don't think that he thought they'd even trust him to vote with them again. And I think that was just a last-ditch effort, like, I don't think he knew he was going home that round, but I think that was a last-ditch effort for him to, like, try and mend fences or get back in their good graces, survive one more vote.
So you next have the gross food challenge. How was that for you?
I'm not mad I lost that one. I knew it was gonna be a struggle for me, especially once they said, like, it's about how quickly you eat it, because I, in my general life, am a slow eater when I enjoy food, let alone when it's disgusting. And I think I noticed very quickly that the more you chew the sardines, the drier they get, which is probably why they gave you wasabi sauce. I should have broken it up into smaller pieces and just tried to swallow them whole. Uh, Honestly, not that gross. I could have just been that hungry. I'm not sure. Um, at that point, I also had the thought process after that first challenge that I forgot we couldn't brush our teeth, so that was pretty disgusting. But as soon as they brought out sauerkraut with cat food on it, I was like, "Yeah, I'm glad to be sitting with the losers right now." And the century eggs, man, they just looked so foul. That challenge, I think that I'm mentally pretty strong. I don't know if I am when it comes to eating. I think I would have rather ate a plate full of bugs. Like, honestly, I could have done bugs, but not cat food and sauerkraut. So, I mean, props to the people who did it, and Jess almost won that one. She was so close, but Rob pulled it out, and, in hindsight, that was the beginning to the downfall, but I was happy for him at the time.
So this round, it ends up being Aliana who goes out. How does that come about?
Mhm,
Because I know Aliana, you've mentioned for 2 rounds now, I'd like to see Aliana gone. How does
mhm.
that finally happen?
I mean, I think that I finally got into people's ears that, like, she was really the one running the show over there. They were pretty on the fence between, like, her and Chad and Allison. And I think strategically they all did work together very well. But I was like, there's no way Aliana's not the one calling the shots with just like how strategic and intentional she is with what she tells people. After she confirmed with me, like, I do really think she wanted to work with me, but she was very strategic about what information she told me, which is what put me on edge about her. That, like, she also confirmed that there was a lot of things that we intentionally planted to make you guys freak out. And I was like, I can't have someone like that around because the longer that they're around and doing that, the more I'm on uneasy footing, which is their whole point. But I would like to be on solid ground here and potentially be the one calling the shots. So I think pointing that out to people, um, personally, I didn't mind if it was Aliana or Chad at that point, but I thought it would be the smarter move to go with Aliana. And I think ultimately I got some people to agree with that um, as best as we could.
Yeah, so it looks like all original purple will vote Aliana, but also you get Chad to vote with you.
Hmm. So that was interesting. And that's kind of where the beads come back into play because we had before that tribal, I think it was the tribal before, they found out that Chad had 2 beads. And as a show of trust on the Juan vote, they told him to leave his 2 beads at camp in the candy jar to see if he would do it. And he did. And then coming back to this next tribal, right before we went to tribal, Aliana shows me that she has a bead in her bra. And we were under the impression that she and Allison had given up her beads for the Jess idol. And that wasn't the case. Um, Apparently, back before the merge, Chad had held on to a lot of people's beads as a show of trust, and then just conveniently did not give the 2 beads back to the people who are at risk of going home. So he had extra beads. So the ones he left behind at the time were his and I think Colby's, and
Yeah.
then the ones he had on him were Allison and Jess's, or not Jess's, Allison's and Aliana's. And so, yes, they burned through 2 of those beads for Jess's idol, but we still had 2 back at camp, and they got those 2 back. So, at that point too, I was going back to my people and I said, Aliana has a bead in her bra. So either Chad is lying to us. For sure, Chad is lying to us. But what's the risk? And they're like, well, then let's vote Chad. And I'm like, why would we not vote out the bead? Like, if we know there's a bead in play, let's go with that route, especially if we think she's strategically running things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's ultimately what maybe helped with that decision, because I can assume that people were going to go that route. The boys were implicitly trusting Chad, which was interesting. But I was like, if we know that she for sure still has a bead, then like this doubles down on the decision. We should absolutely get her while we can get her.
So Aliana goes out 6-3.
Mm-hmm.
You are down to the final 8. How are you feeling about the progression of the merge so far?
Again, I think I'm surprised that I was still there. At this point, like I'd only seen my name written down a couple times in the one vote. I hadn't really heard anyone coming after me. So I was shocked, proud of myself. I thought I was doing really well. I felt like I was in pretty good standing with the way things were going. I will say that I was kind of on I wasn't really sure about Rob still. I think we were still feeling each other out, but like every time we voted together, we felt better. And then sometimes things would go sideways. And I feel like when Nina and I went for the Juan vote, it kind of stirred things up with him again. So like I was trying to manage that, but I was just always keeping it off to the side. Like I don't know 100% if I have Rob, but I felt good with everyone else on purple.
So Rob is kind of beginning his immunity streak, right? So he's just won
Mm-hmm.
his second immunity challenge in the water challenge.
Yeah.
Were you concerned about Rob, or just like he'll lose eventually, we'll vote him out then? What are your thoughts about him?
Oh, I was definitely concerned at that point. I think at that point I was already once he won the second one in a row, I was already floating to Allison and Nina. Like as soon as Rob loses one, he's got to go. Like we cannot. 2 in a row is a lot. While I liked being up in numbers on purple, I was like talking to Nina about like how do we manage this? Like at that point, people were sensing that Nina and Rob were close again. Um, Brandon was still getting paranoid here and there. I do remember like I think it was walking back up from that challenge after Rob had picked Isaiah and Jess for the reward. Nina and Allison were walking ahead of us, and we had talked to them and we're like, we're gonna have to see what Rob does, but if he loses one, like we should probably get him while we can get him. And I think they're walking ahead of us, and it's me and Brandon, and he just goes, "Are they talking about me?" And I was like, "No, we were just talking about the challenge, like how they, they won McDonald's, which ideally would be great, but like they're big on taunting this season. So like, Juan and Lachey were eating McDonald's burgers at Tribal not an hour and a half ago in front of us. So I'm like, well, at least I know that's been sitting there for a while.
Yeah.
It's probably not fresh. That makes me feel a little better, right? Because I lost. And I was like, no, they're just like chatting about the reward and like, potentially what the plan is because we know Rob is safe. But no, I don't think they're talking about you. And it kind of just started the spiral for Brandon. Like for some reason from that day to I don't know, maybe mid-afternoon, he was just so paranoid and I couldn't figure out why. But yeah, we were definitely worried about Rob. For sure.
So Rob wins the challenge. He gets McDonald's. He shares that with He shares that with Isaiah and Jess. What did you want to accomplish this round? What was your goal in the scramble?
I mean, I think my goal at this time was Chad, because arguably, like, he won their individual immunity when we were still in tribes. I was very open when we went on to talk that he works in the world of professional poker as a journalist, but also like Isaiah had said, like, I know him from a previous game. He definitely plays as well. And I was like, well, if I know a thing or two about poker, it's that you can never trust anything because they have a good poker face. So like maybe that's the good next move. So that's kind of the angle I was pushing. At one point I was considering Brandon because he was just being so paranoid. And he was for sure that it was Isaiah coming for him. And I'm like, Brandon, he literally has not brought up your name. Like, trust me as your number one when I'm telling you that, like, Isaiah talks to me a lot too. You're not on the table. Like, it's not a discussion that's being had, which ultimately, unfortunately, led to me getting left out of that vote. But my goal at that point was Chad. I'm like, let's keep whittling down the orange. If we can stay purple strong here, we're going to be back in the numbers. And, you know, we can kind of duke it out and do what makes sense. So, especially because at that point, you don't really know anyone's game pre-merge. I know the stories I'm competing against within my own tribe. So we only know what they tell us, and we don't know if that's true.
But I do feel like, you know, people tend to weight the merge section of your game more when it comes to
Oh, for sure.
just because that's what everyone has seen for the most part.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Which is a fair statement. I just think you never know if they have that ace up their sleeve from pre-merge moves.
And so, I mean, this is going to be the first time you've really been blindsided this game. Did you have any inkling it was coming, or did you kind of notice like things seem off? Because technically it's Isaiah who's getting voted out, but it's because, like you said, you're left out because people are concerned that you're just too close.
Yeah, so no, I had no idea. The votes are red, and I was just as shocked. And then I think I let myself be shocked for like 5 seconds, and I was like, you need to rein it back in. Even though I don't know why I thought that, because every single one of them knew I was also getting blindsided. I was like, you can't let it show that this is going to affect you. And like, had they come to me, was there anything I could have done about that? Probably not, except for the fact that on the Aliana vote, Chad had given, again, because we wanted to be sure that he was with us, he had given Isaiah a bead to hold on to because he had two, so we didn't need to. Isaiah did not look hard enough in his bag. He thought he lost a bead, and he had two. And had that man asked me for a bead, he's probably, either him or Nina, the only person I would have given one to. And he said he felt a shift in the air. I clearly was oblivious on that one. So had he asked me for it, would I have given it? Probably. Would that have turned things around to set Chad home on 2 votes? Absolutely.
That could have really been a turning point in the game right there. Had that been?
For sure. Hindsight's 2020. I just have to keep reminding myself of that. You can't change anything that's happened. But yeah, no, it definitely caught me off guard.
Is Isaiah a person you would happy to sit against at the end with, or just someone you're like, yeah, I really needed him to go deep with because he was such a good ally, but I would have cut him like at 4 or 3?
So I think it depends, right? I think that Isaiah, I could see it both ways. But he was also the first person in our tribe that everyone wanted to talk to come scramble time. He was also doing pretty well in these challenges, finishing second or third every time. So I think that I knew deep down that at some point I'd have to cut him. I would have liked to go on to the end with him. I do think our stories probably would have stacked up well together too, because like some of the moves we made pre-merge were my idea. Some of them were Isaiah's idea. I also have the alternate card in my back pocket. I didn't tell anyone about that till I was voted out. Doing everything that I had done with 3 weeks of prep time when everyone else knew 8 months out they were getting cast is very impressive. And I played a very social game. So like I knew that we probably could have stacked up against each other, but I also knew that like I had better shots against other people. So again, it wasn't necessarily the worst for me that Isaiah went home, but being the one on the outside of the vote, and I didn't know Isaiah was going to go home, but I had a feeling in my gut something was going to happen because Rob and I were talking right before Tribal, and I don't remember why it came up, but he had mentioned that I've been on the right side of every vote so far. And so how convenient that this Tribal, I'm the only one left out of the vote. So there was like a funny feeling there, but I didn't know that Isaiah was the one going.
I think one of the hardest things when you are blindside like this, but you're not the target, is like how do you kind of pick up and deal with it afterwards? Because you never know, like, am I just the next one to go, or is this just like you know, like a one-off? So coming out of this Tribal, what were you doing?
Right. So it's a really hard one because it's your immediate gut reaction is, oh shoot, I'm next. Like it's gonna be me. The rug got pulled out from under your feet. Immediately what happened upon walking out is I was, I think the furthest to the right in that, so it's like one of the first people to walk out. I immediately walk out, we put our torches down, we're getting ready to do, I think at that point, we were just waiting near tribal because we were doing so many challenges in a day that it's like, why walk all the way back to camp? Um, and I think what told me that I wasn't necessarily next was that literally everyone was like running up to me, like, I'm so sorry we left you out of this vote. I don't know why we didn't think about it. Like, we should have had you involved. They wanted to manage their relationship with me, which told me that I was still important enough for them that they were keeping me around at least for the next vote. Um, and this was the second time that I was like, okay, now I gotta, Rob's been winning a lot. He wrote my name down once for no reason, and now he's blindsiding me. Like, that's in the back of my mind. Um, and Nina, I was like, okay, she probably didn't think I would vote Isaiah. That's fine. That's one on one. We've done this to each other once. I'll let it slide this time. And then everyone else on Anada kind of had come to me at that point, you know, hey, I don't know why I want to explain to you that we still want to work with you, but we thought you were too close with Isaiah. And again, at that point, I was like, you guys I knew I had to get him out eventually. Now is not necessarily the worst time for me. You guys could have told me. Um, although in hindsight, right, had I known he had two beads and that it was in his bag the entire time and it did not in fact go missing, we could have made something happen. But I felt at that point, yes, maybe I was next. Immediately after, everyone scrambling to come talk to me, it made me feel like I'm probably not immediately next,
Mhm.
which was somewhat comforting, as much as you can be comforted when you have no idea what's going on. Uh, but yeah, it made things interesting, that's for sure.
So Rob wins his third challenge. This is the
Hmm.
balancing the ball on the plate challenge. This is your last vote out of day 6. It has been a very intense day. Um, Jessica's gonna go out here. Why Jessica, and how does this come to be?
Yeah, so I think at that point we were just trying to whittle down numbers. For some reason, they thought Jessica was a bigger threat than Chad, which I didn't necessarily agree with. Um,
Well, small little technical difficulty. Flag. Hopefully, Gerrilyn comes back soon. Um, if not, oh, hopefully, technical difficulties always fun. I'm betting this is oh,
okay, can you hear me now?
yes, I can hear and see you now.
Sorry, I had technical difficulties.
It happens. I was worried that the phone maybe died or whatever.
No, I got a spam call and it screwed everything up.
Oh well, yeah, spam does that to everything. So, but you're back. You're here. That's what
Yes.
matters. All right. So you wanted to break up the trio of Jessica, Chad, and Allison, and
Hmm.
there's a consensus that Jessica was the biggest threat of the three.
Everyone else seemed to think that. I wasn't entirely sure why. Like, again, Jessica's a badass and she is great, but in my opinion, was not more of a threat than Allison or Chad. I definitely sensed that things had calmed down against a little bit since we got Aliana out. There was less scheming. It was more straightforward. But I thought Chad was their next biggest threat. Um, Allison, I thought we could maybe take along one more vote and then get her out. Chad was my choice. I think the boys, after the Juan vote, lost a little bit of trust in me and Nina, and I think during that time, they had gotten closer with Chad, so they did not wanna go that route. And again, I after being blindsided, was most concerned with not being on the outside of the vote.
So it ends up being 4 votes Jessica, 2 votes Brandon, and you get a vote from Chad.
Mhm.
Was that expected?
Nope. I was happy about that, especially because Chad, after every single challenge thus far in the merge, has kind of come up to me one-on-one and said he wanted to work with me. Again, not really giving any information, so I wasn't 100% sure where we were at with that. Um, but I definitely think it was an interesting move. I understand not wanting to vote for Jess, but I guess at that time I didn't realize in, a day and a half that his allegiance to Brandon had grown so much. Um, and I don't even know if it was that. It wouldn't surprise me if strategically Chad wanted to throw my name out there and get people thinking about me potentially being next. Um, because I know Chad saw me as more of a threat than I think a lot of other people did. I think he was starting to recognize my social game a little bit more, and that I wasn't necessarily taking the back seat and just doing what everyone else wanted
Mhm.
like they thought I was. So it's hard to say which it was. I don't At the time, I think I was thinking that, "Oh, that's really weird, like, you should have voted for Brandon," because I knew Brandon was a little bit aggressive in that, "If you wanna work with us, you're gonna leave your beads at camp, or you should give them to us," and he, like, flat out was going hard at, like, "Chad, if you want to be with us, you need to prove your
Mhm.
loyalty." So, it just seemed odd to me that Chad would not wanna vote him. So, I think in hindsight, it was more of Chad was throwing my name out there to get people thinking about getting rid of me than anything else.
So is the end of day 6. You're at the
Mhm,
final 6. How are
mhm.
you feeling?
Um, to be a broken record, like, again, super shocked I made it this far. Personally, again, my goal coming into this was not be the first person voted out, or even the second, potentially the first person from my tribe, so I was ecstatic. Once I got that far, I did kind of see a potential for me to get potentially the final 2, maybe even win the thing. But also looking around at the group of people that were left, I thought it was gonna be a hard fight for sure, especially because every single immunity challenge we've done so far as individuals, I have not performed as well as I know I could. And it's amazing how quickly you forget that you haven't eaten in 7 days and you haven't slept very well and you're just super hard on yourself about it.
Mm.
Um, but I definitely saw, like, the light at the end of the tunnel.
And so at final 6, you kind of start thinking like, well, who do I want to face up against in a final 3 or final 2? Because you don't know what it is at this point.
Mhm.
Can we kind of talk through the players, what your thoughts about this point were, and like, were you seeing them in your end game or whatnot? So let's start with Brandon. How are you feeling about Brandon at this point?
I mean, not great after the Isaiah vote. He, I know, was the number 1 person who was thinking that Isaiah was coming after him, even though that was literally never a part of the plan. I don't even think Isaiah was at that point worried about Brandon other than he wasn't for sure Brandon was with him, but he wasn't, like,
Mhm.
actively throwing his name out there. Um, and Brandon had come up to me and said, "You guys were too close, like, I get it," and I was like, "Right, but if I am your number 1, it is not number 1 behavior to leave that person out of the plan, even if you were saying, 'We still want you to vote with him so that he doesn't know.' That would've been a different story, right?
Mhm.
But if I'm your number 1 person and you're concerned about this person, you should be talking to me about that, if we can trust each other implicitly." So, um in that sense, I wasn't feeling super great with Brandon, but also at the same time, I thought that potentially my story would stack up the best against Brandon's. I thought that I had done more than him at this point. I thought that maybe, I'd have the best chance sitting next to someone like Brandon because we both played completely different styles of game.
Mhm.
We both had completely different moves despite the fact we were working together a lot of the time. So I was willing to overlook that.
Talk to me about Nina. How are things with her? And do you want to sit with her at the end?
Um, yes and no. I mean, silly little me was like, "Yeah, I love Nina. We'd be great." I don't know how the hell I was gonna beat her come to the end. Um, to give Nina some credit, she also recognized the game I was playing, and she'd sit there and talk with me through it, and she was like, "You are playing a great game, and you have this agency, and you've been, pulling the strings on a lot of things. You were just doing a lot more subtly than people realized." I would have loved to sit next to Nina as someone who very early on, we were locked in with each other and say that we
Mhm.
went all the way to the end together, especially because people didn't necessarily see us as a unit. We could claim you know, different wins. It's just really hard, keeping in the back of your mind that she did battle back from Outcast. That's gonna be a hard thing to top. So in an integrity-based game where my word means everything, I would have loved to sit next to Nina at the end. Was
Surviving
I
Arts Heartbeat.
in the back of my mind at every single tribal was like, it's an option, but do I wanna do it? I don't know." It was, I think that was gonna have to be a game time decision, and I think, fortunately, I never had to make it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, Chad is a person that I think you've been wanting out for at least a couple rounds. What was your
Yeah.
relationship with him like?
We never really talked game. Like, we did, but we didn't. Like, there was a lot of nothing said. And they're like, "Yeah, I wanna work with you. We're open." And then that's kind of the extent it went to every time. So I was not planning on sitting next to Chad. I also think that someone who is in journalism can be hard to sit next to because they can clearly speak to their game pretty well. Um, Not that, I mean, that's the end all be all, but I don't really know what Chad was doing. Even in post merge, I know what he was telling us he was going to do, but that's not necessarily what he was doing either.
Mhm.
So, and we've seen him win challenges. He's a threat. I didn't want to go against him in an endurance challenge. The man who walked, 7 miles a day until he had 1,000,000 steps. I'm not going against that man in an endurance challenge. So, I was fine not sitting next to him at the end. I definitely think they should have gotten him out sooner than they did, but if everyone listened to me on everything I would have wanted, I probably would have won. So, it's not
Uh,
always how it plays out.
what about Allison? What was your relationship with her like?
I liked Allison genuinely. I think that we could have worked together well. I don't think we ever really had the opportunity to do so past the wand vote. Um, and I think that was equally both of our faults because we both looked at each other every time and we were like, what if we just voted together? What if we just pulled this move? What if we just did the girls' alliance? And then
Mhm.
every time we'd come back and I'd be like, oh, well, you voted for a girl. And she'd be like, yeah, you also voted for a girl. Like, it was one of those things where, like, we were skirting around each other a lot. And I just don't think it ever clicked in. But I think genuinely we liked each other. And I think we were interested in taking each other farther. And I also think that Allison is someone who I would have had a good shot sitting next to at that point. So that's kind of where I was thinking. My mind was, Chad or Rob, one of them's got to go. Just never happened.
Yeah. So talk about Rob. I mean, he was a
Mhm.
person that you seemed like you were kind of you were close with early on, or kind of the same periphery around. Then
Mhm.
you've kind of been in two different sides since. And were things repaired with how this merge went, or are you still kind of like we're here but we're not with each other at all, and we each want each other out? So what was it like with Rob?
Yeah, so, when I flip-flop together a lot also. I think that there were times I definitely felt better with Rob, and then a blind side would happen on one of our sides, and we just were, like, back to square one again. I think a lot of the missteps with Rob comes into the fact that somehow we didn't talk to each other until day 3. And we both tried, and then every time we'd be like, "Okay, Rob, it's time to talk." "Oh, it's time to go to tribal," or it's
Mhm.
time to go to a challenge, and it's time for a reward. So I think in those first couple of days, had we solidified something better, it would have been completely different. I do think I lost probably 90% of his trust with the trap vote, and I don't think he even knows that I was the one who kind of orchestrated that until after the game.
Mhm.
But I think he thought that we were really good, and then I was on the other side of that, and him and Nina were left out. And I
Mhm.
think that maybe prevented me from being the third person to slide into that trap spot. And then I think we kind of got better, and then unfortunately, I did it again with the Juan vote. And I was like, listen, dude, I just didn't want to go to Rocks. And he's like, I kind of understand that, but like, why not just talk to us, right? So I think that there was 2 times where I broke that trust before we got to even the Isaiah blindside. And I don't think he felt the need to tell me. And that's, I mean, from his perspective, I wouldn't have told me. I get it. Not that again, knowing what I knew at the time, could I have done anything at that point? No, not at all. But for him to say right before that tribal that you have been on the right side of every vote, and that goes a long way with the jury, despite the fact that he had just won 2 immunities in a row, which probably goes a lot farther. I mean, I could see the intention there. I get it. So it was very back and forth for me and Rob. I do think once we hit merge, we had kind of tried to re-solidify, and then we were just orbiting around each other, and nothing ever really stuck as much as either of us would have wanted it to. And I think it's easy for both of us to say, well, you should have talked to me more. I could see that from both sides.
So what would your ideal boot order been from Final 6 to Final 2?
I mean, my ideal order probably would have been Chad and Rob in whichever order they didn't win immunities. And then when it got down to me, Allison, Brandon, and Nina, I would have said probably boot Allison because it's most likely that Brandon or Nina would take me to Final 2 if it was an option. But I could make the same point for, at that point, I could see Allison, Final 3 girls. We had mentioned that a couple of times. But that's, I think, had that been the order things happened in, that would have been the time where I had to decide if I was going to cut Nina or not.
Yeah.
And that's who knows what would have happened at that point. I would like to think that I would have been cutthroat and said, yeah, sorry, Nina, it's your time to go. But again, I didn't win anything, so that didn't really put me in those power positions. But ideally, I think best case scenario for me would have been me, Brandon, and Nina being Final 3, because either way, they would have chosen me over the other person. Yeah. I'm almost 100% certain of that. But that's not how it went.
It's day 7. Your opening immunity challenge, the Final 6, is a series of puzzles. And Nina beats through this challenge, and you play a bit of a part in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Her, Allison, and I had come together. I remember vividly talking to Nina the night before. I don't remember why. Maybe that was the night that Chad and Rob had their movie? No, I don't think so. Oh, it was? Okay. So I remember, I don't know, Brandon must have went to go to the bathroom or something, but Nina and I were laying in the shelter, and we are both very much, if Rob loses tomorrow, it has to be Rob. Like 100% done. Sure. Oh, no, Brandon was just passed out on the other side of the shelter. We were 100% sure on that. And then, we wake up the next morning. The boys came back some point in the middle of the night. I have no idea where they ended up sleeping, but we woke up, everyone was there. Everyone kind of went about their business. I think Allison was disoriented at that point because she was like, are we all ready for tribal? And we're like, we're not going to tribal. We had tribal last night. And she's like, oh, so what's the plan? And I was like, Rob, if he doesn't win, I hope. Like, I think everyone is at that consensus at this point. So, that's kind of where we were at. I mean, day 7, I was just thankful to be there. I was like, if I can get through one more night out here, like, that's all I need to do. We were, kind of speculating, like, at this point, is there going to be an auction? We hope so. There's not really enough people left for an auction, but God, let it be a reward day or something. Because I'm like, it almost has to be Final 2. There's only 6 of us. Yesterday we did 4 tribals. 5 people went home.
Yeah, 5 tribals, 5 people.
5 tribals. Yeah. We're like, if we stay on this pattern and we do 3 more immunities today, it almost has to be a Final 2. Because we weren't sure still if it's Final 2 or Final 3. So we're like, let's just see how the cookie crumbles. Like, I was trying to be adaptable at every turn. I was like, we really have to see who wins immunity. We can't plan that too much beforehand. But if it's not Rob, then Rob's going for sure. So, and then, of course, that's not what happens.
Well, Nina wins. And
Oh, yes,
you
Nina won the
you were going
puzzle.
to end up voting for Rob, but why is it
Yeah.
not end up be Rob?
Yeah, so Allison and Nina and I had come together and we're like, "Okay, this is puzzles. We know Rob's not great at puzzles. If we can help Nina out or if we can help each other out so a girl wins, let's do that." I didn't anticipate Nina solving the first puzzle in 5 seconds. So at that point, Allison and I are just filling her bucket for her so she has all the time in the world. Um, and then as soon as we get back to camp, Nina starts going, "Well, maybe this is a better time to get Chad." And I was like, "Nina, what the hell? We've talked about this." Um, I was down to do Rob. Brandon was down to do Rob. Allison was down to do Rob. Chad was down to do Rob. And I'm like, that's 4 people. Let's just do it. It's not what happened. I got blindsided yet again. And personally, again, I guess I didn't realize that everyone that they had made a final 4 that I was obviously not included in. But strategically for everyone else's game, especially, with Rob obviously ending up being victorious, I think it still would have been smarter to go Rob at this point, but
Allison wins the next challenge,
mhm,
and again, it sounds like you probably say Rob, and everyone says you.
right. And that's the thing is they were being very good about it not being me. Like, I think afterwards I found out that Chad was really throwing my name out there pretty much every tribal after he wrote my name down, which I was unaware of. Um, Yeah, it was kind of wild. Allison and I, at that point, she had tried to convince Chad that I would vote Nina with them, and I was really considering it. Um, and then I was talking to Rob, and they had made it seem like everyone was gonna vote Nina. And I was talking to Rob, and Rob at that point was pitching Chad to me, probably because I was on the outs. Um, and I was like, "Yeah, I didn't realize that they wanted to go Nina. Are you going Nina?" And he's like, "I'm absolutely not going Nina." And I didn't realize he was not in on that. And
Hmm.
so Allison comes up to me and she goes, "Yeah, like, listen, I know you just told Rob." And I was like, "You guys made it seem like Rob was in on it. Why would I not talk to Rob about it?" And so Chad very openly announces, like, "I know who I'm voting for," and just looks straight at me. And I said, "Okay, that's fine." Allison sitting there begging him, like, "No, she'll still go Nina with him, like, with us, I promise. Like, let's just do this." Um, So at that point, like, I knew it was me. If 4 people are voting for me, and Nina's coming up to me crying like, "They're going you," and I'm like, "I mean, technically you don't have to, because 3 is enough to get me out, but I understand if you're gonna vote for me, like, it is what it is at
Hmm.
this point." So I just walked into
It's
that
kind of a
tribal.
reverse of what you've had in the
Yeah.
pre-merge.
Oh, absolutely. So I just walked into that tribal being like, "Fine, if you guys wanna all vote for me, then I'm gonna be dramatic about it." Why not? It's my time. Be dramatic.
So I was surprised because, like, as a viewer, we don't get to see as much, right? So it was
Yeah.
interesting to see that this Final Four was locked in so much with each other, and I was just like, I felt like for some people, getting you out was really good. Other players like, oh, I don't know if Gerrilyn's who you want to have to go out here, but
Oh, yeah, I felt the same way. Um Usually, I'm someone who's really good at reading people, so for the fact that I did not pick up that that 4 was really locked in, like, I didn't know until it was too late that Allison and Rob had played a game together before. I don't see the point for Chad to be the 4th there, but I knew Rob couldn't really trust me. He probably didn't feel great, being with 3 girls. That would always put him at the bottom. Yeah, so it was just interesting in my opinion that I mean, I was very, very vocal about how I didn't think it was the right move. Like, you're gonna vote someone out who hasn't won a single thing. That's
Mhm.
fine, but, like, your stories stack up better against someone who hasn't won anything. At that point, Nina was the only one who knew probably the majority of my game, but she still wanted to take me to the end. Whether that be a personal decision or a game decision, I don't know, but I wasn't gonna argue it, You wanna take me, take me. Um Yeah, I don't know if it was the right move for everyone. I definitely think in hindsight, it probably wasn't the right move for Allison. I think her game maybe potentially would have benefited from me staying.
Mhm.
But that was the time where it was like, do I want to take Nina out here? And, apparently I'd already fumbled the bag on that decision. Chad was pissed off. He was going to do what he wanted to do. And
If
That's
let's could have should would have. Let's
mhm,
say you do say yes. Nina goes out. It's
mhm.
you, Rob, Chad, and Allison. Would you have a shot at the next two mini challenges?
I think I would have done well at the trivia one
Okay.
because I think that I've picked up a lot of information on people, and I do think some of their guesses were very misguided.
Mhm.
Uh, I think that I could have done well at that one. I'm trying to remember what was the tribal after that one.
So you
Oh,
have the
the
fallen
standing.
comrades and the hands in the heart idol. So the endurance challenge.
I definitely think I would have had a shot at those two, for sure. I do think that I got to know people a lot better than the 4 people that were left. I do think that Chad won the trivia, right?
Mhm.
I think that he maybe got a little bit lucky with some of his votes. Um, and I do think that I do think that I was playing a more understated game than I think it was being received the way I wanted it to based on people throwing my name out there for certain questions.
Mhm.
So, I do think I had a shot in those 2, um, but if it's always easy to say that I had a shot when I didn't even get there.
So going to the final tribal council with Allison as well as Rob, were you leaning one way or the other, or are you locked in already for a player?
Um, I would say I was open, but I think I was leaning more towards Allison at the beginning because Rob really played up the not speaking well to his game. I mean, we saw it in all the tribals. He was very much kind of bumbling his words, not really fully answering questions. And towards the end of my time there, I knew that he was playing that up intentionally. So I was really interested to see how he was going to speak up in that final tribal. Um, Emotionally, before we got there, I think I was leaning more towards Allison, but it really depended on how they spoke to their games, and I think that's ultimately what shot her in the foot.
So talk to me about that. What about either Allison's speech or jury answers um, inclined you more towards Rob over her?
Um, I think she came in overconfident. I think she had just assumed that she had almost all of the jury votes
Hmm.
because, um, I mean, to be fair, when we came in, it was 6-5, purple to orange. So, I mean, her entire tribe was sitting over there. In her eyes, that's 4 automatic votes for her. Out of a 9-person jury, she has to swing 1 person. And I think that she thought that Nina and I for sure were going to vote for her.
Hmm.
Um, so I think she was just a little bit overconfident. And it's not that she gave a bad speech, but I think that her jury answers the questions, she gave a lot of non-answers, just assuming that we saw her game. And so she didn't explain it the best.
Hmm.
Whereas Rob took every opportunity to own the things that he did and he really orated a great story.
Hmm. So you think one of the challenges was that you felt you had a good grasp of Rob and his progression of the game, but Allison, you didn't feel like you got that from her.
Correct. I think that was one of the big challenges, especially because, like, going into the final tribal, I thought, "Oh, Rob hasn't done anything this game," because he played it up that way. He definitely acted like he had no idea what he was doing. He
Hmm.
was just bumbling his way through and winning all the immunities. But when he could really speak to it and say, "This was intentional," and like, "I'm sorry for crossing you, but I had to do it to get here,"
Hmm.
I respected that.
Yeah. So you asked players to, what is your perception of the other players and why should they not win? Did you
Mhm.
feel like their answers swayed you at all?
Yeah, I always love a throw your opponent under the bus question. I think it tells you a lot, right? Because I know it's very easy for people to say like, "Well, I did this and maybe they didn't do this." And that's why I specifically said like, "Don't tell me why you played a better game. Tell me why they played a worse game because I
Hmm.
want you guys had this locked in alliance. You're buddy buddy, you're working together. This is your
Mhm.
chance to rip them apart. Like, why is it you over them? So I wanted to see what they said, and again, I felt like Allison didn't give a good straight answer on why Rob should not win, and
Mhm.
Rob took his opportunity yet again and said, "Here are the reasons why Allison shouldn't win."
Mhm.
And sometimes you gotta respect the yes, I gave them the opportunity for a little bit of dirty gameplay, but, like, that's also the thing is you have to be willing to cut your lines when you can,
Mhm.
and this is that time. So,
So were you surprised with the vote breakdown then? I believe it was, let me get tab back open. It was 6 votes Rob, 3 votes Allison. Were you surprised with that, or was that kind of like you kind of were like, that makes sense?
um, yes and no. I am not surprised that Aliana and Jess voted for Allison because they basically, from the entire time I was in the jury house, were saying that that's what they were gonna do, which in the jury breakdown thing that we did,
Mhm.
almost kind of annoyed me because they both said that, "Hey, yeah, we're open. We could go either way," and I knew for a fact that that wasn't true. They were gonna support the girl Allison, and there's no problem with that, but just say it from the start. You know, you've already decided, that's fine. I think I was shocked that I believe Juan decided to vote for Allison as well because
Mhm.
he was very vocal all season about how these girls kept screwing him over. But I mean, if he thought she played a better game, then that's his choice. I wasn't super surprised per se. Um, but I think the only person that really surprised me was Juan. But, again, I guess I could say it doesn't because when push came to shove, he was still trying to get Anata back on his side with that vote he went out on, so
Mhm.
it just almost reads the same to me.
How was the post game celebration for you?
I mean, I really enjoyed it. It was a good time. I think getting to talk to everyone about their games in a context where it doesn't impact what's happening anymore was really interesting, and, getting to see people's reactions to things and then finding out, who was what's move, and, like, I mean,
Mhm.
I can remember Rob's face when they told him that I was the reason Trav left. Like, I wish I had a picture of it. It was hilarious. And to find out that he's not still mad about that was great because I think that was my biggest concern at the beginning when I was voting is how seriously are people gonna take this? Like, I know it's not a
Yeah.
game for $1,000,000, but sometimes it is hard to set your emotions aside. So, seeing that we could all kind of come back together, like, as a family, so to speak, I know it sounds cliche, but, like, you really do bond with these people, was so phenomenal as an experience, and then just, getting to get to know these people in a much lower stakes environment was great.
What has been your takeaway from this experience? What have you learned about yourself?
That's a great question. I mean, first and foremost, I can do hard things. And I know people are like, it's a game, it's not that hard. But when you've never been camping and you've never put yourself in a
7 days
situation
is
like
a lot.
this, yeah, for sure. Especially because like I had the opportunity to interview for another game that's gonna happen in August. And I decided, I don't know, 5 days seems like a lot. Maybe I'm not. I'll start with like a 2 day game and then randomly end up on an 8 or 9 day game. Questionable decision making for sure. But I think that I came out of it with a lot more self confidence and like self worth personally. And like something I really very much needed to learn was like, you got to put yourself first. And nothing better like a game like Survivor than to learn that.
Mhm.
So that was really cool to see. And to like actually say I was proud of myself going out fifth. Cause like truly, could I have voted out Nina and stayed fourth? Yeah, but I probably would have gone out fourth. Like we would have just been flip flopped there, most
Mhm.
likely. So honestly, just coming out of it proud of myself and like I did this whole cool new experience that I probably never would have done in a million years if I didn't make an impulsive decision on vacation. Uh, and now it's opened up this whole new community to me where I can continue to play games like this and make friends that'll last a lifetime. It was just such a rewarding experience for such a variety of reasons.
So, are there any? Is there anything about your game that you want to talk about that we haven't had a chance to dig into yet?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't necessarily think so. I will say in hindsight that I think going into whatever game I play next would be that, like, making sure from the jump that you're having those alliance conversations and, like, actually
Mhm.
locking things in because I think everyone skirting around each other, being unsure is what leads to more chaos. As much as people don't want to draw lines in the sand early, I think that is 100% necessary.
I do feel like, this getting a grasp of how fast the tribe is moving is important, right? You move too fast, you
Mm-hmm.
stand out, everyone targets you. You move too slow, everyone's already in alliances and targets you. It's trying to figure out how fast is the game moving, and how can I match that, or maybe go a little bit faster, but not like
Mm-hmm.
egregiously so. It's hard.
It can be. It's a lot of how well are you at reading the room,
Mhm.
um, and which room are we in today, and who's working with who. So, and that's part of the reason I love it, right? Because like the first couple days, I'm like, "What the hell did I get myself into?" And then once you kind of adapt to it and you keep moving, like, it truly does become fun. It is nice when, you have a whole group of people who are understand, we signed up for a game. We're here to play the game, and, yeah, maybe I'm not happy with where I finished. I am, but, um, some people maybe aren't, that they don't hold it against you personally, and to be acknowledged too. They did superlatives at the party, and rookie of the season, I will take that. I loved my experience. I learned so much about myself. I made so many great friends, and then truly got a hell of a lot farther. I think looking back, some of the decisions I made were maybe not intentional, but I'm still gonna own them. Um, there's a lot of luck involved in Survivor, and I'd be
Mhm.
amiss to not say that a lot of that worked out for me this season, but hopefully they do a returnee season and I get invited out. I'd love to play again. I miss Reelfoot so much already. So,
So I have a couple of wrap-up questions for you.
mhm.
Do you prefer swaps or no swaps?
Well, I only have experience with no swaps, so I would love to see what a swap is like. I do think it probably would have made things a little bit less purple versus orange in the merge because it gives you that opportunity to make these other connections. Even if it's just for a couple of votes, you've had to grasp onto those people and lean on them for a little bit. So it does make it a little bit messier or more fluid, so to speak, come merge time. Um, but I feel like this season, for all intents and purposes, was almost closer to like an old school season of Survivor in the sense that you didn't see a lot of advantages. You didn't see a ton of, well, there were, I think half of the idols were played, but um,
Mhm.
it almost felt like because you didn't have to worry about those other things, it gave a lot more time. It was a great starter season for someone who hadn't played before because I cannot imagine having all these other advantages and people running around looking for idols all the time. Like, it would have been way messier. But a swap, I think, would have been an interesting turnabout, and I think it would have made the merge completely different.
Should every fan Survivor game have a redemption aspect to it?
I'm gonna go no, and that's probably controversial for people who got voted out earlier. Because obviously, if I had gone out earlier, I would love for there to be a redemption. I wanna be in the redemption, let me battle back. But if you do it every time, then I also think that maybe you're not as intentional with your game because you know there's another opportunity to come back. It also gets rid of the whole expect the unexpected if you're doing it in every single season. So I
Mhm.
think sprinkling it in here and there is great. Giving people the opportunity to battle back is awesome, because it always does switch up the game, but I don't think it should be done every season.
What was your favorite challenge?
Ooh, that's a good question. How do I want to answer this? My ego wants to say
I mean,
the
it's
man
just like,
down
what you have?
challenge.
You may have not won, but what did you have the most fun with?
Yes. So my ego wants to say the man down challenge because I think that's where I did the best. But honestly, that first challenge right off the rip, our first reward challenge, the longest challenge they've ever run, arguably the hardest challenge we ran while we were out there, was the most fun for me, having to get with this group of 9 strangers and then all of a sudden go, you're in it. Um, having you have to carry these crates with you and you have to go to every different station, and thank God I didn't have to eat the mayo. I was just chugging the water, but I think that was the most fun that I had. Um, I think a lot of those ones where you get to see a lot of different skill sets and there's a lot of stations. Those were my favorite.
What was one of your favorite camp life moments?
Mm. Um, let's see. I'll do one pre-merge and post-merge. So one of my favorite events that we did at Kanane was we would play what we called Mind Meld. It's like a trivia, not trivia, improv game. So I've seen people do it together, which is two people. You think of a word, one, two, three, you say a word, and then you have to keep getting closer words. But we would do it where we'd go around the group. And honestly, I think it helped us practice our communication skills because we were like kind of starting to think in the same processes.
Mhm.
So that was always a fun time for us. And it was just a way to like, take a step back from the game and like just bond with people as individuals. And then also in the post merge, there'd be times where like we really just got to sit around the fire and just get to know each other as individuals and like talk about our whole lives and the struggles we're going through, or what are things we're celebrating right now, was phenomenal.
Who would you share the jar of candy with?
Who would have I shared the jar of candy with? I think I would have tried to pick people who I wasn't necessarily aligned with. Sorry, I think my AirPods are about to die. Um, I wasn't necessarily aligned with, so I could keep that on the DL. I think there were a couple people when we did the candy who said, "Hey, you don't need to pick me. That's fine." There was a few people who said, "Yo, pick me," which is, I think, sometimes shooting yourself in the foot in Survivor. So I think I would have just tried to pick a random mix of people, someone I was working with, a couple people I wasn't,
Mhm.
see how that shook out.
Who do you wish you had an opportunity to work with but didn't have an opportunity to do so? Don't worry, we're almost done. Get.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think that I would have liked to see what it would have actually looked like to work with Jess potentially. Like we were both in the same position where I think we were just in spots on our tribe where we're like, okay, we're feeding information in, but we'll do what the tribe wants and let's see how that
Mhm.
shakes out. So like kind of seeing her playing her own individual game and how we could have shook together there, I think would have been interesting.
Last question. Who would you like to see come back and play another season of Reelfoot in the future?
I mean, other than myself,
Other than yourself, yeah.
um, that's a great question. That is a hard question because obviously my mind immediately jumps to someone from Kanane because I know them the best and I
Mhm.
think they would have had a good shot. But I almost want to say, um, maybe like Colby or Andrew. Like I didn't really see their games at all. I didn't really know they were gone before I really got to do much with them. So maybe one of the earlier people voted out on Anada.
Well, Gerald, thank you so much for taking the time this morning to go over your entire game with me. I really appreciate it, and I had a lot of fun, and I hope you did too.
Oh, absolutely. It was such a great time, and it's another reason for me to hang on to Reelfoot for a little bit longer. So,
And then you can go listen to the everyone's multi-hour interview
yes,
as well for even more
yes.
content. Um, Thank you for everyone who's been tuning in. This has been another deep dive interview from Surviving Reelfoot First Fire. Stay tuned. There's more. I will be talking to Aliana on Monday, and then both Rob and Lachey on Wednesday because I'm insane. And so those will all be coming up and more after that as well. Take care, everyone. And Geraldine, thank you so much, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.